What's good, everybody? It's King Dre back at it again with a Monster Hunter Wilds video, and this time I just really wanted to go over some monsters that I want to return in Monster Hunter Wilds. We know that we have to wait until next year, 2025, hopefully early next year. I don't really want to wait until summer, so hopefully January, February, March time we can all have our hands on the game and give it a try. It's already looking incredible. Everybody already knows from all the trailers, from the gameplay that people have shown, it's going to be a very, very good game. But today, rather than discussing the quality of the game, I just wanted to go over some of the monsters that I really want to see back in the series. Some fan favourites, some for different mechanical reasons, ecology reasons, things that I think will fit into Monster Hunter Wilds from what we've seen so far. But yeah, there's a fair few because I have this template right here, which was made by a user called Fumetto on Twitter. So if you give them a follow, that'd be great. They made this template for people to use, and I have seen some of the people's suggestions and people's wish lists, and I do have my own. Although I have definitely seen a few very interesting ones indeed. So yeah, I'll try not to dwell too much on the monsters themselves and the reasons behind them. I will elaborate on a couple, but I don't want to make this too long because there's 25 spots on the template, so I've got a lot of monsters to talk about. So yeah, anyway, starting with the very obvious and probably the most common returning monster for most people is Lagiacrus, so I'm just going to get that one out of the way. There's not really much to it, you know, everybody wants Lagiacrus back. Lagiacrus should have been back in World, like in my last video I showed in regards to the prototype that was in World. Obviously they wasn't able to get it to work in the game, but as we've seen from Valhalla, they have fixed the issue with the Leviathan skeleton, so yeah, we really should be seeing Lagiacrus back. If we don't, I will be very, very surprised because Capcom, they know just how much people want him back. So yeah, Lagiacrus for number one. For number two, I have another fan favourite, and probably another one that you will see in a lot of lists, and that is Nergigante. One of my favourite monsters of all time. It's just the fight, everything about Nergigante is just cool. Everybody loves Nergigante. His fight is, for me, the most satisfying fight there is. How hard it is at the beginning, how hard he hits, and all that type of things, to then learning his moves, learning his mechanics, learning the spikes, and then that fight goes from being almost impossible to very, very easily overcome. So it's just perfect game design in my opinion. Something that initially starts off as the hardest thing ever, with a bit of practice then becomes second nature, and you know, you can speed run it, and every single time you find Nergigante, there's just not one time that I can remember that I have ever not had fun, regardless of whether it's the first time when I struggled to now where I can pretty much kill him with one hand tied behind my back. So yeah, Nergigante is always good business, so yeah, put him in. The next monster is one of my all-time favourites, to be honest. Definitely in my top 5, maybe even top 2, maybe even first. Anyway, it's Devil Joe. Now, the reason I want him back, other than for the fact that I absolutely love him and everything is now, is that if Wilds is really focusing on the ecology of the monsters like they say they are focusing on, and obviously we have seen a lot of the ecology side being important, I feel like Devil Joe is one of those that's really interesting with the entire gluttony situation. Always wanting to eat, always hungry. If he's not eating and he is hungry, he's rampaging. Obviously we have the old myth of whether or not he eats his own tail or whatever, and he eats on the Devil Joe, so that'll be a really interesting thing. They could obviously expand on everything we know about Devil Joe, because he's one of those creatures that hasn't had much of his lore confirmed in terms of in-game, so I feel like he's a very good addition. And not to mention, we have the mechanic with Doshiguma, like they've said, when he is enraged, when he gets into that final state, when he goes berserk essentially, his wounds all open back up again because of just how angry he is and how his body tenses up. And I feel like Devil Joe is one of those who can have that exact same mechanic but turned up to 11. So it'd be exciting to see Devil Joe back. Obviously, you know, as a roaming invader as well. Very, very interesting in terms of how Wilds is going to play. So having a Devil Joe, or multiple Devil Joes perhaps, roaming around looking for food everywhere they go, just disturbing the nature, each environment they visit, each locale. I just believe that it could lead to some very interesting interactions, especially with how destructive and how powerful it is. Obviously, Elder Dragon level type of power. So yeah, Devil Joe for me is an almost perfect fit. More so than most other monsters, to be honest, that I can think of. So yeah, Devil Joe, please come back. The next monster I want to talk about is a bit of a wishful thinking one, maybe, but for me, a Cantor is one of the most incredible looking monsters in the series, and obviously it's one of those very high threat, very high level powerful monsters as well. He wasn't obviously in the 5th gen, and he's always required his own arena, but this is another thing that I want to touch on, because we've seen that Raydal has his own little nest area, but we've seen mainly the Lala Barina trailer that she has a nest, which is obviously her nest, obviously with all the webbing and then everything else that comes with it. Does look great as well. But we know that Wilds is a seamless, almost open world game. We've got the confirmation that there are going to be multiple locales, obviously they're all interconnected and whatnot, but what we don't know is if we're going to have like extra little areas which would act as the arenas for things such as Fatalis, for example, obviously with the Shred Castle, and you know, Cantor has his own arena as well. Obviously Gore Magala had his own arena at some point back in when it was first introduced. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting thing to talk about, and it's not really something that's been discussed a whole lot, because I believe, in my eyes, that there may be some monsters, obviously we haven't seen all the locales, but they may require like a specific arena type of area, just for those fights, like those high spectacle, you know, high-end boss fights. Like I can't see having a final boss, which is obviously going to be crazy because from what we've seen so far, and just fighting it in just a random, you know, not a random, sorry, but in a regular locale where you'd fight any other monster. I feel like there's got to be some sort of secluded area that's going to be specified for those types of monsters. So I really want to see a Cantor come back. I hope there's like some sort of volcanic area that we're going to get shown at some point, one way or the other. But hopefully there's like a certain part within that, perhaps closer to the volcano maybe, where only he roams and he controls that area. So I think we need to really think about that, and it might be something I can potentially make a video regarding that. But yeah, so a Cantor is just, you know, it's one of those monsters that I've just always wanted to see in high fidelity, high graphics, you know, with the new mechanics, new attacks, new everything, new fight. So it's just something that I think that Capcom could, and if they do, I am sure they would, make it a very improved fight, and in terms of the visuals, in terms of the mechanics, everything. So yeah, Cantor for me is an amazing monster that just needs to be reintroduced into the series in a more modern setting with the modern work that they've done, which is pretty much every monster they've shown so far that's come back from World onwards has had some amazing improvements. So making a monster that's already popular and already, you know, a fan favourite would only add to that. So yeah, Cantor. The next monster, I'm going to be perhaps a little bit lazy here, and I'm just going to throw in 4 in one go, so we'll just go with the Fated 4, so Glavenus, Astalos, Mizutsune, but most importantly Gammoth. Now, Mizutsune, Glavenus and Astalos, they're just all very well designed monsters. They're very popular monsters. I like every single one of them for their own reasons. I think Glavenus may be my favourite outside of Devil Joe in terms of the Brew Wyverns. His Iceborne fight for me was just amazing. I don't know if everybody agrees with that, but regardless, in my opinion, I think Glavenus was an amazing fight, and I fought him so many times because I just had so much fun fighting it, just going blade for blade with Tailblade himself. So yeah, Mizusune, Bubble Fox, you know, amazing design. Everybody loves Mizusune, one of the best designed monsters in my opinion as well. I do like it. And Astalos as well. The design is probably my favourite design of the flying wyverns that I can think of. It's just crazy good. But for me, the main one here is Gammoth. Now, Gammoth is obviously important in the 5th gen because, you know, it's a very, very big monster. His fight was kind of dull. It's like one of those monsters that's just kind of too big, so he was essentially just hitting his feet. But with Wilds, I want this to happen because they've already broke the barrier of the Leviathans with Balahara, of course. Obviously, they had the Jericho's issue, like I said earlier on, which stopped it from being a world. But Balahara's now made it. They said they worked very hard to make this happen. So I feel like that's one barrier. Why not break another barrier and include Gammoth in a way that feels fightable, still keeping the size, obviously, just to show just how big and meaty the monster is, but not impacting the gameplay and being actually able to fight it as a normal monster as you would with anything else. I feel like that is a challenge, and I know Capcom does like to challenge themselves and bring new things in and try to fix things that didn't work in the past, perhaps. But I think Gammoth coming back would be a big deal, because if they can do it and they can do it right, then there is no telling on what other big monsters they can come up with for the game, for whether it's Wilds, whether it's the expansion, whether it's another game after Wilds. But having that groundwork, being able to do that, I think would be massive for Capcom, and I think it's something that they should consider. Obviously, if they can do it, amazing. If not, which, to be honest, I'm not sure where I stand on that. I don't know if the possibility of it coming back is high, low, or impossible, but I keep my hopes up. Hopefully Gammoth comes back, gets an updated fight, and blows everyone's minds, and then becomes from the least popular Fated 4 member to at least 1 or 2 places higher. That's my hope. Anyway, so Gammoth for Wilds, please. Next monster I want to talk about that I want to return is Zamtrios, because we have Chatacabra as an amphibian, and as I specified in my previous video, it's not a very popular, or should I say populated, category of monster, so having the amphibians back in to the main line, to the next gen, I believe Zamtrios is probably the best amphibian in my opinion. I mean, just from the ice armor looking gnarly, you know, just being a shark with legs, it's already a cool concept, I think. And then the balloon phase, it's just, what can you say? I mean, with all the monsters we've seen so far, very, very serious, very threatening, why not throw in a bit of Zamtrios to lighten up the mood a bit, while still fitting somewhat in that category? But yeah, not too much to say about Zamtrios. It's just a cool monster, it's funny, it's fun, it's a great design. So please bring back Zamtrios. You gave us Zamites in Rise, you didn't give us Zamtrios. Why? What are you doing? Make it up to us. Add him in. That's all I'll say. I feel like I'm making this video for Cotton from Rage Gaming, but my next monster is going to be his favourite monster, which is the Ramboros, because again, Brute Wyverns, we've not seen any so far in Wilds. Obviously they will come, I'm 100% sure of it. But yeah, the Ramboros didn't even come into the 5th gen. It was the only one to feature, which is very sad, because it's just a funny little guy. Say little guy, big guy. He's a funny big guy. Always got a little smile on his face, just like Cotton says. And, you know, very docile monster for the most part, unless you try to take its trees away or start attacking it. The spin attack where it takes off, I mean, what other monster does that, let's be honest. So, for me, yeah, he just deserves to come back. So, the Ramboros is something I want to fight, and giving him an updated fight, and updated visuals, can't go wrong. The next monster is perhaps the best, or at least top 3 best monsters in the last game, which was Rise, and that's Gosharag. Gosharag, just for the simple fact that it's amazing. It's a crazy creature, amazing. It's got that scary look, which seems to be the fit in Wild so far as well. So I think it fit very well in terms of the design, and not to mention it does resemble the Doshiguma already in terms of its body structure, you know, the fur, the way it stands and everything. So I think they can reuse those assets from Doshiguma to bring back Gosharag, and obviously add his ice shenanigans, or even perhaps give him a subspecies, which is something he didn't get in Sunbreak. Make him fit in the Windwood Plains, or any other locale perhaps that may not be ice. I think that'd be an interesting take on bringing him back. So if you give him like a subspecies, just like they did with Crimson Glow Valstrax, they didn't actually need the normal monster in there, they just had a subspecies. I think Gossarag could come back in that way. So yeah, Gossarag for Wilds too. And the next monster is a bird wyvern, and probably the birdiest of bird wyvern, and that's Malfestio. So Malfestio, I mean, what other word to use for Malfestio but unique? Because, like I said, it's out of the bird wyverns, it's literally the birdiest of them. It's a literal owl, but it has so many cool mechanics that no other monster has. The switching the controls, with the confusion. It's just, again, for Wilds, bringing something like that in, adding that variety, adding an actual bird, rather than, you know, like a Kulu-Q, for example, or whatever, like a raptor bird. An actual bird is what we've been missing, and I think having Malfestio win would then probably open the door to adding maybe one or two others that are more birdy than the rest of the bird wyverns. So I like to see Malfestio. Great addition, very unique, that is all. The next monster, not much to say, Gore and Shaggaroo, just add them. Literally just add them, because we've been crying out for Gore, we've been crying out for Shaggaroo. We got them in Sunbreak, very good additions, but we want them in next gen. I mean, I want to see the visual, we've seen the environment change when the storm hits the Windward Plains, when the sand tide comes in, the lightning strikes, we've seen how dark it gets, but can you imagine what they could do with that same fidelity, but with the frenzy virus when either of them become enraged? Come on, I mean, do I really need to negotiate this? I'm pretty sure most people would agree with me. Just add those two in. I mean, if you might as well add them both. There's no point in just adding Gore, or adding just Shaggaroo is probably even stranger. So add them both in, and we're all happy, right? Okay. Next, Najarala. Simple fact, it's a snake wyvern. We've not had a snake wyvern since Najarala. We don't have any other snake wyverns really. I think the Remobra, the little wyvern things that see the small monsters count as snake wyvern, but I'm not going to go there. So we've had Najarala and Tidal, that is it. We need to have Najarala in to introduce us to a new snake wyvern. Is that too much to ask? I don't think so. So Capcom, if you're listening, which probably not, let's be honest, please add a snake wyvern, and please add Najarala. I don't know how else to stress it. We need a snake wyvern. Looking at one of the armors, it does look very scaly, and it looks like it could belong to a snake. So maybe Najarala is here, but if it's not, the main thing is just add to the roster, please. We need more snakes. Come on. Next monster, one that has been involved quite heavily as of late, but I still want them to come back. And that is none other than everybody's favourite terrorising monkey boy Rajang, because it's Rajang. Look, again, same with Devil Joe, such a destructive creature. Even for its size, it's so strong, so fast, and Elder Dragons have trouble with Rajang. Big monsters like 2, 3, 4 times the size of Rajang have very, very big trouble with him. So we need to see more of this. We need to see how that plays out in such an open landscape. So, and also as well, because I want to see the monkeys. Obviously, Congalala might be in. We don't know for certain. Obviously, it's looking like it is, but we have not been told that. But regardless, if we're going to have monkeys, I want the king of the monkeys to be there. And also, touch on the monkey situation. Monkeys tend to have a big herds of sorts as well. Like in real life, obviously you always see a lot of them swinging in trees together, like a little army of them. So can you imagine a Rajang army? Like you just walk through like a foresty bit. There's a bunch of trees, and you look up, and then there's just the Rajangs just swinging on trees or fighting or doing whatever they're doing. I think that would be incredible. Although probably in terms of balancing. I don't think that monster is something you want to be encountering its entire family, because one is more than destructive enough. But Rajang in a pack scenario, for me, would be a dream. But again, don't think they'll do that. But I'll conclude it anyway. Next, I want Valstrax again, because Valstrax is one of the best monsters in the whole series. With the big open spaces, seeing it flying around the open map would be incredible. Obviously, we have Crimson Glow in Sunbreak and in Rise as well. We didn't get him in World, but I mean, I just again the visual of seeing him flying in the distance, hovering about, just zooming through the open terrain. It's just something that I think is going to be so unique to see. And obviously it's ambush attack. Can you just imagine you're fighting, say, a Raidal, you know, going back and forth, you think you've got it, and all of a sudden Valstrax ambush, boom, Jet Dragon just appears out of nowhere, takes you and Raidal out, and then you've got another problem in your hands. I mean, like, what else can you ask for? Like, really? It's like, we want this to be cinematic. How cinematic can we go? Just add Valstrax in, get him to ambush you whilst you fight a monster when you least expect it, in these new graphics, in this new fidelity. Amazing. Next, go for an ice monster here. One we haven't really seen. We have had his regular counterpart, but I'm talking about Orochi Kirin. So Orochi Kirin, obviously it's the ice version of Kirin rather than the lightning. I think if we have an ice map, like we did with the Hoarfrost Reach, I think was a very big missed opportunity. I think Capcom should have added Kirin in there. He would have fit so perfectly there. But yeah, having an ice Kirin could mean so much, because I have a video that I'm working on right now, which is talking about some of the Elder Dragons and the implications they may have on the dynamic weather system that we have in Wilds. So just to keep it short on that, I think Kirin in an ice map causing some natural disasters with the ice, chef's kiss. That's it, really. Another one, for the same reasons, I won't really touch on this, I'll touch on it in another video, and that's Kashala. And literally, same reason, wind, weather, extreme, you know, it just makes sense in my head. So I'll discuss this again in the next video, but that's the sole reason for me. Obviously it's a great design monster. The fight, not the most appealing to people, definitely annoyed me a lot when I first played World, but you know, Sunbreak one was much better. Right, Sunbreak and the Rise one too. So bring back Kashala, see what impacts Kashala has on the world, and go from there. Following Kashala, just for the same purposes, I'm going to throw in Namiel, because Namiel having the control over the water and some of the thunder element can lead to some pretty cool situations. And again, I don't want to iterate too much on that right now, because I want to put up this video, put everything together, and gather all my thoughts and all my ideas, perhaps even get some ideas, somewhat feedback from other people, maybe if they have similar ideas of what they may or may not want to see in regards to this. But yeah, Namiel was in the top 20 as well of the monster poll that they did for the anniversary, so it clearly shows that despite some people's opinions in terms of fighting her, and obviously with the whole terrain changes and the water pulling and stuff, the design was amazing, and people clearly liked the fight, because it wouldn't have been in the top 20 like above things like the Grex and, you know, big very popular monsters. So yeah, I think Namiel should definitely return. It wasn't in Rise or Sunbreak as well, so it gives that a little bit of a push to perhaps enter the fray in terms of what we can fight in Wilds, and it's obviously a powerful monster, it's an Elder Dragon, so I think Namiel will be a great fit. And for the bottom 5, so the last 5 monsters that I want to discuss, I'm going to call these wishful thinking picks, I suppose, because these are a little bit less likely to actually come, and it's just like a pipeline dream. So starting with one that is very unlikely, but I would love to see, and that is Gogmazios. Obviously, Gogmazios, been in one game, required an entire specific arena to fight him. Obviously, his ecology is very, very interesting, although perhaps not the most realistic thing. Obviously, with the whole car and what he eats and stuff, and having a Dragonator stuck inside him and stuff like that. Pause. But yeah, the design is great. It just looks like it's one of those that was quite an early one, so the graphics and everything like that don't really display how unique he can look in terms of the visuals. Obviously, with the tar, in something like Wilds, you could have like the tar literally drip off him and stuff, and actually show that in game. I think that'd be a great addition to the series, and just having a visual upgrade as well as a mechanical upgrade would be amazing. But again, he requires, so much work to have him and explain his existence in the locale or whatever it would be that would fight him in Wilds, and for that reason I don't really see that happening. But it would be a great fight, and I really wish that this is something that could be implemented. But of course, always get what we want, can we? So yeah, Gogmazios, that's still one on my wish list, because I want him to come back, so I'll include him. Going from Gogmazios, this is another one. It's a very popular choice nowadays too, so I will include that, and that is Dalamadur. Obviously, discussed Nedgeral in terms of the snakes, and obviously this is just another snake, but also it's an elder dragon, the biggest snake, really. Like, I don't think you can make it any bigger. Although, like I said, for the Gammoth side, having the size, I would like to see a monster that is just gigantic like Dalamadur is, and see how that would work in like an open slash seamless world, which is obviously what they're going for in Wild. So that would be interesting. Obviously, it has a lot of crazy mechanics and attacks and whatnot. Whether that would make sense to include in the Forbidden Lands, that's another question. But I do really want to see Dalamadur return at some point, and I think everybody really does. Even though the fight itself, let's be honest, it's not exactly the most exhilarating fight in terms of the actual mechanical aspect of it, but the fact that you're fighting a gigantic snake, it's always, regardless, it's always a spectacle. Whether it's Monster Hunter, Sekiro, anything that has a big snake, it's always a big moment in that video game. So yeah, Dalamadur, if they can bring it back, I'll be ecstatic. So yeah, I'll throw that one in because I know a lot of people also feel the same way. You see it all the time. As soon as the little spire, the little rock formation that's in the background of the Wilds trailer was shown, there was already theories that Dalamadur was the one who caused it by crawling through it or whatever else. So yeah, it's wanted, so I'll include that one. Next is one that I generally do not see coming whatsoever, but I will still include it because I want him to be in, and that is Dire Moralis. Obviously, out of the 3 black dragons, excluding obviously subspecies, variants, whatever, it's the only one that hasn't really returned at all past this game, and obviously with good reason, because it operates in a more of an underwater basis, although obviously you can fight it on land. Without the water aspect, it's a bit difficult to implement, and I don't see that happening. And obviously we've been told there's no underwater combat, just slight underwater traversal, which is, again, just like with the Zamtros thing, adding the Zamites in Rise, but then not adding Zamtrios. It's just like, oh, you're trying to tease us here, but not actually giving it to us. So yeah, we'll put in Dire Moralis, but I'm probably 99.9999% sure we're not going to see him, at least not in Wilds. Maybe in the future, who knows, but right now, unfortunately, we're not going to get him. Following from Dire Moralis, let's get in another black dragon. We've just had him, but he needs to come back because the fight was incredible, and that is Fatalis. it's another one with the issue regarding the zone, because obviously we always fight him in Trade, at least the regular one. So I don't know how that would work in Wilds, which is why I'm saying wishful thinking, because until we figure out more whether we do get these special arenas for certain monsters that are located somewhere within the Forbidden Lands, then I'm not entirely sure how this would be implemented. But obviously having something like a world ender like Fatalis is just incredible. Just thinking of the possibilities, and like the fact that we've never actually had any sort of in-game interaction between Fatalis and any other monster. So Fatalis plus something as powerful as Fatalis or close to. Obviously there's not really anything that's going to be touching Fatalis much in the main line, but that would be something that I think that would be in the best interest of Capcom to show, because we've seen Fatalis, obviously there's the law, you know, we did already destroy the whole country in one night or whatever the case may be, but, you know, all monsters fear him and all this stuff, but I really wish that we could see something and just show how powerful he really is in comparison to the other monsters, have some form of interaction with another Elder Dragon or whatever the case may be. That would be something that I really, really wish that we could get at some point, whether it's Wilds or whether it's another game. But I'm going to put him in for Wilds, and it doesn't have to be Fatalis specifically, because Old Fatalis is obviously something that also needs to return. Crimson too, I suppose, but I'm more interested in the White Fatalis or Old Fatalis, because obviously with the Dragon Meteor Strike, all that stuff, it's just imagining that in the current generation would be something to behold, really. So hopefully we get Fatalis and Old Fatalis, or at least just Old Fatalis. You know, maybe he's moved all across to the Forbidden Lands, obviously a more hostile area. That's where he's living out nowadays, and you know, it's a hard concept really, but we'll see what they bring up. So hopefully, White Fatalis specifically, or regular Fatalis, Crimson, all good of me. Fatalis equals greatness. So it is for me, any of them. And finally, for the last pick, I'm gonna go bold here and go with a monster that's not in the mainline series, never has been. But again, I don't really see this happening whatsoever. But again, if it's my wish list, it's something that I want. So I'm gonna throw in Frontiers the Sufaroa, because it's literally probably, in terms of the lore and everything else, it's probably the strongest monster should it come through to the main line. Now, I don't think this is going to happen. The thought behind this is obviously we've just had Espinas come in to Rise, so it's kind of opened the gates a little bit for the Frontier boys to be huntable in the main line, so if it makes sense, they can be added. The Sufaroa, does it make sense? Maybe not, but the fact that he has the Frozen Seraphim element, which is something no other monster has, so it would introduce a brand new element to the series, which is obviously a bonus. And just the fact that it's just one of the most difficult fights that there has ever been at Monster Hunter, and in terms of the lore, it's also just as much as Fatalis, if not more, in terms of how powerful it is. So obviously for me, I love the powerful monsters. I love the ones that have something about them, not just in mechanically, but they've also got a backstory to them, how they work in the lore. And I think the Sufaroa is one of those monsters. Again, contentious pick, not going to happen, I don't think, but you know, we can dream. So for me, the Sufaroa would be amazing to see in the mainline series. Maybe needs a few tweaks because it is a little bit ridiculous. If anybody's ever seen or played and fought with the Sufaroa, they will know that it's no joke, and it may be a little bit too crazy for the regular series. But you know, Capcom, they like to mess around, they like to experiment, and obviously they do things that make sense, so they could make any sort of adjustment to the monster to make it make sense in the actual games. So I'll throw the Sufaroa as my final pick, and that is it. So from what I can see, as you can see, I've got Legicrus, Nergigante, Deviljho, Akantor, Glavenus Astalos, Mizitsune, Gammoth, Zamtrios, Duramboros, Gosharag, Malfestio, Goran Shagaru, Najarala, Zhang, Valstrax, Orochi Kirin, Kushala, Deora, Namiel, got Mazios, Dalamadur, Diamorales, Fatalis / Old Fatalis, and Sufferoa. So yeah, going through this video, I know this is a lot longer than I expected it to be, but there's been so many monsters that popped in my head that I'd left out now. With that, I wish I could go back and add, but if I had a few more spots, this video might be way longer than it needs to be. And so if you've managed to watch this whole thing, if you did watch this, then I appreciate it. Let me know any monsters that I've mentioned that you think are either a good or bad idea and why. If you have any theories in terms of any other monsters that were mentioned and anything that could work based on my choices, then please do comment them down below, and obviously let us know how any monsters that I didn't say that you think maybe fit one of the ideas mentioned for why I want them included, or perhaps anything in general of what monsters you'd like to see. But yeah, I'll close this out now because this video is already like over half an hour long. So thank you very much, King Gray again. I'll see you in the next video.